Welcome to the Regen Brands podcast. This is a place for brands, retailers, investors, and other food system stakeholders to learn about the consumer brands supporting regenerative agriculture and how they're changing the world. This is your host, Kyle, joined by my co-host, AC, who's going to take us into the episode.
On this episode, we are joined by Joseph Cassinelli, who is the founder and president of El Nacho. El Nacho is supporting regenerative agriculture with their line of tortilla chips made with certified regenerative corn. In this episode, Joe shares how El Nacho was born during the pandemic and how it turned him from a seasoned restaurateur to a new CPG founder. He details the importance of their clean ingredients, ancient processing techniques, and intentional sourcing decisions to produce a bold, flavorful chip that is better for eaters, farmers, and the planet. We get the behind-the-scenes look at their brand inspiration and desire to bring storytelling and joy to the snack aisle with their bold Lucha Libre-inspired characters like El Nacho, Miss Mango, and El Diablo. Joe also gives his hot takes on how we can increase consumer demand for regenerative products and shares some top-secret information about their innovation pipeline. So grab some chips and guac and dial in on this one. Let's go.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Regen Brands podcast. Very excited today to have our friend Joe from El Nacho with us. So welcome, Joe.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for making chips, man. I'm a big chip consumer, and been eating tortilla chips for a long time. And I actually didn't see your brand at Expo West, but AC told me about it during our Expo West recap episode, and I immediately bought a variety pack and was blown away. I have sent them and told numerous friends about them. I think they're phenomenal chips. And what I love most is how fun the brand is, while also being well-intentioned, high quality, thoughtful ingredients, clean LOI. So really pumped to have you here and to learn more about the story.
I really appreciate that. It's very kind of you.
Yeah, absolutely. So for our listeners who are less familiar with El Nacho, give us a quick high level. What sort of products do you produce? What SKUs do you make and flavors, and where can people buy your products today?
Yeah, so we're a artisanal craft tortilla chip brand. So we're making tortilla chips based on ancient nixtamal techniques. My partner Jovi is a master tortilla maker. When we started out to do the business, we really wanted to do something unique and a snackable tortilla chip. We saw that as a category we really wanted to go into. That's where you find us. So we're at a lot of local stores here. We've launched kind of nationally with some bigger retailers. We got some new launches coming up, and farms everywhere from farm stands to natural stores to conventional. We're starting to make a lot of headway.
Well, I live out in Pacific Northwest, and I have yet to I can't buy them easily that I know of yet. So I'm eagerly anticipating. If you send me a sell sheet, man, I'll take care of it for you.
Appreciate that. I will do that.
We'll get there. But when you say here, where is here? I think
Waltham, Massachusetts. Yeah, we're based out of Massachusetts. It's kind of funny. People are like, "Oh, tortillas don't come out of Massachusetts." I'm like, "Well, my partner's from Chihuahua, so it's just like vis-a-vis Massachusetts."
Right.
Yeah. Well, we're both actively working on the El Nacho West Coast expansion. I placed a sizable order a few weeks back and realized that I probably bought a little too much. So I had my girlfriend take it with all her friends to Coachella, Joe, and they were very impressed and very excited.
Oh, that's amazing. Would have loved some of those picks.
Consumers. Yeah. Miss Mango is my personal favorite. I think they're all great, but that's definitely my number one at the moment.
Yeah, that's Miss Mango took the first place next to the award for best salty snack at Expo West.
Yeah, we were popular. Excited to see that. Yeah, she's captivating. And we want to dive into her and all the other characters and all of it. But Joe, take us back. You, I believe, are like a successful restaurateur. How did you start making tortilla chips? Why did you go from that or do that in addition to the restaurant stuff?
Yeah, so I have a group of Mexican restaurants called the Painted Burro. One of them is called the Burro Bar, but we're an upscale casual Mexican restaurant group that started in 2012. Based off, it was a second concept for the restaurant group and kind of just took off, but really loved Mexican cuisine. I thought it was like wide open in the United States. I tell people it's a lot like cooking Italian food. It's like we base a lot of a cuisine on Oaxaca, and Oaxaca is a lot like Tuscany or Italy. You have coast mountains, you got valleys, you got cheese, meat, dairy, you have all the things, spices. So Mexican cuisine is really popular, and it really meant a lot to me, and I thought it would become a very popular mainstream cuisine in the United States. And the demographic in the United States is growing, Latinos very much a part of our culture now, and maybe not as much on the East Coast as it is in the West Coast, Midwest, but it's growing. My partner Toby is a musician, and he always tells me, he's like, Latin music isn't that big in the United States, but it's the #1 music in the world.
Wow.
So it's something to think about when your perspective, like top 5 musicians in the world are Latin. They're not what we would think of. It's not Justin Bieber or anybody else. But there was a natural progression. So I always use high quality tortillas at the restaurants, and it was challenging. I kind of dabbled into like opening a factory over the last 10 years and never really had the bandwidth to do it. And then during the pandemic, when the restaurants were shut down, Toby approached me. I was like, hey, you want to do tortillas? I was like, yeah, screw it. Let's build a factory and make tortillas. I don't have anything else going on besides running takeout. So it was fun. It was like, gave me something like kind of a breath of fresh air, especially from the restaurant industry, where it was like I was getting strangled to death. And brought like a lot of my passion back for creating and storytelling. And I think that's what we wanted to focus on as a brand, is really tell a story. That's why you see the characters. That's why you see the names for the characters and their origin stories. And as the brand progresses, the flavors progress, the characters progress. Like Miss Mango, she's got the Scooby-Doo van. Like she drives the Impala. Everybody gets in. So that was really inspiration. It was creating a better for you snack that, I have 4 kids, and I'm I'm a Cool Ranch Dorito guy forever, but I don't want to give my kids those. And we wanted to create something that was relatable, fun, but maybe mom and dad feel better about buying it for their kids.
For sure. I love that you brought up the Doritos factory, because that's when I first tried the chips. I was like, wow, this is like the first time it's like a guilt-free Dorito. And growing up, like, shout out to my algebra teacher freshman year. My buddies and I were so obnoxious. Every morning we buy a huge bag of Doritos salsa chips and thumbprint our homework with like the stuff you get on your thumbs. We're trying to make as much noise as we could eating these chips. And I haven't really touched them since, so it's really nice to be able to get that sort of fix back into my pantry in a way that I feel really good about. And you mentioned sort of the impetus, like you don't want to feed those to your kids. At what point did like no seed oils pop up on your radar, and like the importance of avocado oil, and like when did regenerative become part of the equation for either the tortilla business, the restaurant, or did it start with El Nacho?
So the regenerative thing really came on my radar when we went to Expo West in 2024. That's when I started to see some of the, commodities like rice and corn and stuff start to be regen. And I was, was there with a friend, and we were walking the aisles just being like, this regen thing is cool, because I'm like got organic fatigue, right? Because organic fatigue has become big business, and I thought that it was truer to itself. Regen is good for the earth. It's regenerating the soil, right? And organic has gone, like you can buy hydroponic organic lettuce.
Right.
It's not like there's nothing organic about it. It's just they're slapping an organic label on it. It didn't come from the soil. It's not coming from the earth. And that's big business. And so I saw regen as being like a future into farming, right? Supporting farmers, like giving them a healthier alternative, because these guys are they want to maximize their land and grow a product that they can sell. And if they can get more dollars for, organic or whatever, but the certification is like mind numbing for them. It's kind of too cumbersome. It doesn't make it any better, right? It's like they're still using herbicides, pesticides, fungicides, insecticides, right? They're just organic. And that's what really that it was like stripping it down into its natural essence of being the regen. Just spoke to me, like something triggered inside me. I was like, this is cool. And so we worked with our seed producer, seed farmer, and he was able to source some farmers that can supply us with regen. And then the trick was really, getting certification, finding the right balance, because it's cumbersome for farmers. I feel bad. I feel bad because, we need a supply to go into business. You need a supply of the corn. They have to plant the corn, harvest the corn, dry the corn. So that's a long game. And it's something I'm proud to be participating in now, because I think it's going to be a big part of our future. As far as the seed oil goes, I'm in the restaurant business. Like we use seed oil to fry. Like all our fryers are seed oil. And when we started out, we started out in seed oil and sunflower oil, and I really didn't think much of it. I don't necessarily buy into the seed oil is bad for you category, right? Like eating a pound of French fries is bad for you. Eating a pound of chips is bad for you. Everything in moderation. If it's clean, it's fine, as long as it's clean. And I also found it kind of insulting to 99% of the population that can't afford to eat avocado oil. So I thought it was a little bit too pretentious. Now, what we did find is that frying our chips in avocado oil did provide a cleaner flavor. And that was really the determining factor, was when we switched, when we started doing test batches and samples, we were like, wow, these actually taste better and cleaner. And we taste more of the spices and stuff coming through the oil. Now, I don't know why that happens. I'm not a scientist. I'm just a chef. And when things taste better to me, like I roll with that. So that's where we went. And it definitely puts us into a different market and different category.
Did you find any similar like product performance improvement from the regen corn as well? Any elevated flavor or sturdiness, anything like that, Joe, or no?
So the corn is, without testing it, it is more nutritionally dense. And that was important to us because nixtamalizing the corn the way that we do, it enhances the bioavailability of the nutrients in the corn, right? Mm-hmm. So when you go to a dry product like corn meal, corn flour, or maseca, yes, the corn is nixtamalizing like maseca, for example, but you don't have the same bioavailability of those nutrients. And when you're nixtamalizing, you're enhancing that, and your body's able to digest those nutrients. Having regeneratively farmed corn, ideally, yes, it is bringing it up in the spectrum of like, it is more, nutrient dense for you. We did notice the slight flavor in the corn, and that could be from just the land being different where that corn was grown, from a different farmer. Could be the strain of corn that they were using. So we're still very early in this game, so we haven't seen a chart of flavor profiles like we have in the past. So,
Joe, you mentioned nixtamalizing, and I see that on a bunch of tortilla chip bags. I don't really know what it means. I also see the volcanic stone ground call out on some of your chips. So walk me through the process of nixtamalization, how that does or doesn't involve volcanic stone ground, and why that's important, both from the bioavailability perspective you mentioned earlier and like taste and authenticity.
Yeah. So, I mean, nixtamalization is so important to the making of tortillas and making corn edible. So nixtamalization is a really important process, and it enables humans to eat corn or to get the nutrients from corn. It's an ancient Aztec technique that was used. The Aztecs prayed to the god and like, how do you make this corn, edible for them? And it was certainly by happenstance that they found this technique. There's a lot of history. There are a lot of tales that go about like how they came up with this, but it was the Aztecs that founded it, and they tried to, give it to the Caucasian settlers and stuff when they came here, but they didn't listen to them. And Native Americans here, or the indigenous people in the United States, tried to give it to the settlers, and the settlers didn't listen, and they starved to death for their first winter because they didn't want to listen to them how to process the corn. But really, it's like taking that corn and cooking it with lime or calcium hydroxide. And what that does is it softens the outside of the corn husk and allows water inside, the oil to come out, allows water to go in, but it changes the nutrient structure of the actual corn kernel. And it enables us as humans to actually digest that corn, right? When you talk about like feeding corn to cattle, corn for cattle is not nixtamalized, right? So that's why corn is so bad for cows, because cows are not made to eat corn. They're made to eat grass. But if we were to actually nixtamalize that corn for cattle, we could raise all this beef on corn, right? Because the cows would be able to digest the actual corn. That's a big part of the process. That's really the magic of making great tortillas. And then the second half of that is the grinding. And it's time and temperature on the corn where you're cooking it, and with the calcium hydroxide, and letting it steep long enough to really, do its magic. And then the grinding, the texture of the stones. So Toby, again, who's the wizard, he's carving these stones. He's sharpening these stones with a little grinder that, we put these stones together, and then he adjusts that, how those stones, how wide they are, the mill stones, right? Just like you would at a flour mill. He's adjusting that to get the perfect texture, perfect balance, so that the moisture content that's in the corn, we maintain enough of that and get the right grind so that we can make the tortillas. Because it's important, we believe, when making great tortilla chips, you have to start with a great tortilla. And your chips stop becoming great as soon as that tortilla is made. So if you're using a corn flour or a corn meal or a masteca to start with, you're making tortilla chips, like you're never going to be better than what that is, no matter what coatings you put on there, right? So maintaining that, it's the same tortillas I use in the restaurants. So the same tortillas that we're using at the restaurants to make tacos, or enchiladas, or flautas, we're using those to basically chop and fry for tortillas here. It's a crucial part of like what we do. It's a part of the craft that we are holding on to. It's a differentiator for us, and truly what sets apart like the great tortilla. I mean, that's the magic. Once you bake that tortilla, anybody can cut and fry tortillas and throw seasoning on them, right? We're not landing spaceships. The magic is all like the cooking of the corn, the grinding of the corn, the making of the tortilla, and then then you know where you stand.
Yeah, I feel like I'm curious now to ask you, Joe, like about where the Luchador branding came from and where the brand aesthetic came from, because it's like very clear as to how the product's differentiated in category from a product perspective, right? Sourcing, ingredient, manufacturing, but this brand is super loud, bright, fun, unique. Like, what was the inspiration behind that, and how have you thought about that and where it fits in the category?
So when we're coming up with the brand, we're going back and forth. We wanted to have a lot of fun. We wanted to have a great personality for the brand. We were trying to figure out like, how do we become a lifestyle brand as well, right? We're not just trying to make a product. We're not trying to just call it, label it with something. We want to create life. We really want to bring it to life. So we spent a lot of time thinking about it. We went through a lot of iterations of what it was going to be, and then we kind of went back to our childhood, like we did on the packaging. So like, I'm a huge comic book fan. Like I've collected comic books my entire life, and I love the storytelling that goes along with that, with animated figures. I was a wrestling fan when I was a kid, like growing up watching WWF and WWE, and Toby's from Chihuahua would go to Luchador, Lucha Libre events. So we kind of just put that together, and we're like, let's create our own cast of characters. And what was important with Lucha Libre lifestyle is that these guys are heroes in their community. So they're beyond wrestlers. These are people that are idolized in their communities. They're doing charity for their communities. They're outreach for their communities. There's a lot of pride that comes from the communities where these people are from. And it's a very your average Joe can become a luchador. Like, you don't need to be a jacked up bodybuilder to be one. This is like, any guy with a passion, their heart is full and like wants to do this, so they can do it. And embracing that lifestyle. So that was a huge part of us, our storytelling that we wanted to develop. And El Nacho was our main guy. One of my sons was identifying as the they them. So our origin story on El Nacho, we created a they them luchador. And when El Diablo came along, El Diablo was a rudo, who was the bad guy at luchador, and he ends up finding the good side and teaming up with El Nacho and creating that spicy chip. Miss Mango was a fangirl, basically, from from a mango farm, who idolized El Nacho, seeked him out at the Coliseum, and she took her under her wing. They fell in love, and they created like the Miss Mango. Yopina is like the cousin, right? Like little dude, and he's like, don't forget about me. Like I'm like the pineapple guy. So, like I mentioned, Miss Mango drives a Scooby-Doo van, right? So she's got the Impala. So we cross into like wrestling. The car is like lifestyle. It's like the car culture. We wanted to get into the bike on Yopina is like that activity, like outdoor lifestyle. We've got another flavor coming up that I'm trying to get a surfboard on it. I think that'll be a lot of fun. So it's we wanted to appeal to a lot of different demographics. We want to be able to tell a big story with figures that are approachable, and that are not intimidating. And we are having a lot of fun with it so far.
Man, I love the intentionality. I'm kind of following along on the website as you're describing each of these different characters. And even before we got here, we talk about the Mango Hot Honey. You're like, oh, Miss Mango. Like, you refer to the SKU as the character. And I love that level of dedication. And it's super fun to see. There's so much intentionality behind it, so much more than I'd originally picked up, even though I thought the brand was beautiful. For those who can't see, they're just listening. I mean, it's like bright yellow, black, in your face, like borderline superhero postures. It's just so much fun. So it's really cool to hear the origin story and how this all came about.
Yeah, the colors are important. We want to have bright, bold colors. And honestly, we would I spent a lot of time at the grocery store, and I was just like, I gravitated to like things as a kid, like the Cheerio box, or McDonald's or Burger King or In-N-Out Burger, or I'm just in burger places right now, but those big loud presents, like, to captivate the kid, because our consumer is going to evolve, right? Like, people ask, like, who are you marketing after right now? And I was like, well, we're going after like Gen Alpha right now, because Gen Alpha is going to grow up and be our consumer later. And, the millennials and the Zs are like, or X, like, these are their kids. So they're buying the product for them. And then the Z is going to grow up, and, they're going to continue to buy. Millennials going to grow up and buy, and Gen X, like, I'm borderline boomer. So, it's just, we felt that it crossed all of the demographics, and we could still cultivate a future consumer by integrity, like offering this product, getting them to grow up with us, so that the longevity of the product is there as well. We didn't want to be a flash in the pan. We didn't want to just have a cool product and then like figure out like, what do we do next? We want to begin like, this is chapter 1, book 1 of like a big series.
Yeah, and I'm so happy to hear that level of intentionality is coming from a brand who truly cares about the farmers, about the product, about the nutrition levels. It's to your point, like McDonald's, Fruity Pebbles, like all the other folks that are like targeting kids and doing it for like the wrong reasons, get them hooked on the bad food. Whereas it's like you're trying to get them hooked on the good stuff. It's so cool to see somebody competing at that level. And at least in my perspective, like doing a good job at it.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. It means a lot. And when kids come in and they try the brand, like we're next to a gymnasium here, and the parents are always bringing their kids over, and like we bring them into the factory, and the parents are like stunned. They're like, I can't believe that you're making all this here. And we'll show them the chip line running, and we'll show them the chips, and then they turn the bag over and they're looking at it like, oh my gosh, like this is all clean ingredients. And like, yeah, like take a couple bags and like us on Instagram.
Right.
Yeah. It's cool because those kids are gonna grow up and be our consumer. And hopefully more brands will do this, right? Like we need more brands to get into the regen. We need more brands to like follow this path, and it takes a village, right? It takes a big village, from the farmers to, you guys, what you're doing and spreading the word, and the different associations of certifications that are out there, and getting the buyers on board really, and getting the consumer ultimately to like make that decision at the cash register.
I'm thinking about, as a millennial, like I have 2 overwhelmingly positive associations with luchadors. Obviously, Nacho Libre, the movie. Like,
yeah,
iconic.
Seriously.
Like,
Jack Black. I'm like, Jack Black, come give me a call.
Yeah, I mean, but like, I've seen that movie however many times. Like, I still send voice notes to a buddy of mine where we quote the movie. Like, so like very positive. And then Rey Mysterio was like incredibly popular when I was coming up. And I wasn't a huge wrestling person, but like he was like one of the top guys. Yeah. I wonder if there's anything like that for Gen Z or Alpha, that I just wouldn't be aware of because I'm too old or anything, but just curious, like, think about that.
I'm shocked at the amount of Lucha Libre underground there is.
Really?
Yep. It's a growing trend. And as this country diversifies, and as the Latino culture starts to get what they're due in this country and be able to stake their claim and grow their culture into this country, and it's accepted more into this country, you're going to see more of it. The fact that Rey Mysterio as a kid from the the 90s or 80s, it shows how it transcends culture.
Yeah,
like it transcends borders. Like it's an amazing, because they're good people. Like they're just good people, and I think that speaks volumes to the culture and like what we're trying to do. So it's all feel good stuff.
Yeah, and it's backed up by like real business economics. I mean, I remember in college, we had an international business class where they were talking about the changing demographics and how the purchasing power of Latinos is just going to be insane, like over the next few decades. And even last night, my girlfriend and I are eating at a Mexican quick service restaurant, and they have I don't know what channel it is, but it's specifically just the Mexican soccer leagues. And all the commercials were for American brands, American restaurants, American things, all in Spanish and all completely dedicated and produced specifically for a Spanish speaking audience. And I was like, wow, like I've never actually even seen that. Like that's wild. So yeah, very, very cool.
I think it's awesome.
I want to pivot to, you mentioned like it takes a village, takes the buyers, the category. I think I said this before we started recording, but it's worth acknowledging that, as a chip consumer, I was constantly torn between buying Siete looks at the avocado oil and buying Zax's Mighty because of the regenerative piece. And I love that El Nacho sort of bridges those two things in. I also want to give Zax's Mighty credit for switching to avocado oil, which I think they're in the middle of that transition now. But when you start pitching your product to buyers and you're competing against those other two premium tortilla chip brands, how are you differentiating yourself? Is it more leaning into the brand and like who you're targeting? Is it the specific flavor profiles? Because based on my perception as a primarily natural channel shopper, flavored tortilla chips are kind of hard to come by. So this is many questions in a row, and I hate that I keep doing this.
Joe can handle it.
Tell us a little bit about what those pitches are like, where you're focused on your differentiation, how the buyers are responding.
Yeah. So the biggest reason that we switched to regen corn and to avocado oil, when we originally launched this brand in 2023, we went out there as we were white corn, non-GMO tortilla chips, 12-ounce craft paper bag. Really cool branding. I don't know if you've seen our original stuff, but it's not dissimilar to what we have now. Actually, all the origin stories were on the back, and we had more real estate to play with on the back. But as we went out to the market, we weren't really getting credit for the attributes that we're putting inside the bag. Even though our chips were fantastic and tasted better than most of the competition in that category, we found that buyers were not as receptive because they saw it as like a one-for-one replacement. So when you're talking to the buyers, it's like they don't really know the difference between like white corn, yellow corn, flake corn, dent corn, cornmeal, corn flour, masteca. Like they just don't know. They're just, to them, it's a tortilla chip, and you're supposed to be
low corn IQ, unfortunately.
You're forcing it in your $3.99 on CPR, right? And I was like, geez, man, like it was frustrating. And so really we went back and we looked at the data and like questioned ourselves. Like, when you're a chef-driven company, you're constantly questioning yourself. I think you have to be humble in this game and go to your consumer and say, like, what is important for the consumer, right? What does the consumer need, right? Like it's like Steve Jobs is famous for saying this, like, don't develop the product from the engineering standpoint, you develop the product from the consumer standpoint and work your way backwards. And we do that in the restaurant business all the time, right? Like what can I get? How can I get people into my restaurant? What is the product they're looking for? And how do I provide it the best way? And so we did that. And when we pivoted, we were like, let's up the game on the corn. Like, yeah, we were using non-GMO white corn. That was great. We knew the farmer. That farmer worked with us, and we were able to get some supply from them. They have more coming. And then we switched to another farmer to backfill basically what we could get. And that's where the flavor, the change in the flavor profile start to come in. But that was a very important part of the evolution. And when I looked at the data on the tortilla chip in the grocery category alone, it's a $4 billion category. $3 billion of that's owned by Frito-Lay. So, and that's just grocery. So that's Tostitos and Santitas and, Doritos. Right. And the other $1 billion is made up by a bunch of smaller companies like us, like name the company, Mission, Social, Menina, On the Border, Que Pasa, like pick it. The biggest of those brands was Siete in late July. And when I looked at the growth of the other companies, it was really like plus or minus 1%. And the biggest movement is like Siete late July. And I'm asking myself, like, okay, so the consumer, this is what they're looking for. Looking for a snacking chip that is a healthier alternative with creative flavors. And that's specifically the market that we wanted to move into. So we took ourselves out of that 12-ounce paper bag, kind of craft chip in there. And we moved it into this other category. And that's where we're seeing the success, because that's where we want to compete. So when we're pitching with a buyer, if we look at it from a value standpoint over Siete, we offer 40 to 50% value. We're offering a 10-ounce bag of chips for $5.99 SRP, as opposed to like a 5.5 to 7.8 ounce bag. There, we're not a grain-free chip. We're a corn chip, and our chips are very, very different than Siete's. I think the other part of it is like we make our chips, we don't co-pack our chips. So that's gives us the artisanal side of this. And then our flavoring profile on the other side is it's not synthetic, right? We're using real mango juice, real pineapple juice, real honey powder, real corn, real chili. Like, this is real ingredients, right? So there's no additives, there's no preservatives. And it's challenging, right? When you go to a buyer and you're like, they want to talk about price point. It's like, okay, well, you want regen corn, you want avocado oil, you want better for you, but you want me to do it for less than Doritos. I'm like, I can't do it. Right. Like, you either want to play right? You either want to step up to the plate. Like, I hear your problem. I hear your problem is you want to provide a product to your consumer in your store, in your innovative set that speaks to what the consumers are looking for today. But you got to work with us. Like, we're not I'm at ground level here. I can't go down anymore. If I go down anymore, I don't exist as a company. You don't get innovation. So it's really important. When I say it takes a village, it's like you got to get the buyers involved, and then the consumer has to be willing to pay a little bit more for that. But as a category, I think it's important that you start to develop a new top three, right, in a category. Potato chips have seen a lot of innovation over the years. Tortilla chips have not seen that type of innovation, and so when we're able to come into the market with innovative flavors, I can get into the flavors, but when you start to come in with like really truly innovative flavors, there's never been a mango chip, there's never been a pineapple chip, there's never another really cool flavor coming out that just hasn't existed before. So that is driving trial, and once people try it, they're like, oh man, like I said, I'm a blue bag Doritos guy, like since I was a little kid. But when I go back to them now, when I do buy that bag of blue, Cool Ranch, it doesn't satiate me the way it used to, because I've become so used to eating the better for you version, and the texture of the chip is completely different, right? Gosh, guys, I could talk about this forever, but when you try a chip,
this is your podcast episode, Joe.
Right, this is what you're for.
I mean, when you're trying these chips, right? And challenge yourself, when you go to the store and you're trying these chips, you try all these different flavors, like let that chip sink on your palate, right? When you're eating a chip that's stone ground nixtamalized white corn, our chip eats like a pastry. It's flaky in your mouth. It doesn't dry your mouth out. You don't get that like I need to drink something, I need a glass of water or something to chase it down. When you're dealing with like product that starts dry, you're always gonna, like, your palate dries out. It becomes crumbly and like it like sticks in your mouth. So these are things that like big companies can't do, and we're nimble enough and at the level where this is always going to be our mission. Our mission is always going to be to start with great tortillas and make chips. Like, all the guys come in with all the equipment, right? They're like, you can be more efficient if you like do this and like, form your chips before you bake them, and you don't have to cut them. And it's like, yeah, but that's part of the texture of the chip. Those edges, those cut edges create part of the texture. They allow the oil to like get inside the chip, right? If you pre-cut your chips and then bake them, now you have sealed edges, right? So the oil, the flavors can't penetrate. When you're baking and then cutting and then frying, you've opened up the edges of that chip to allow the flavors to get in there, right? Like, it's totally different. But yeah, that's part of what differentiates like a true artisanal chip. Do buyers understand all this? Do they care about all this? No, not all the time, but some of them do. Like, some of them are starting to geek out. Like, there's a generational shift in the buyers, right? Like, a lot of the older traditional buyers are phasing out, and there's newer people are coming in, and we're just smarter about food today, and we care about the details. And so I think that that's a big part of our mission statement is caring about the details so that we can give that best product to the consumer. But I think it's important. I think the more brands that jump on, or become involved in these movements, the better. It redefines the category. It says to the consumer, like, oh, wow, this is real. Like, this is a big thing that we can be involved with. And they're going to like my chips better than other person's chips, and they're going to like those chips better than like my chips. And that's all cool. It's a giant category, and there's plenty of room for everybody. It's just preference, right? And so our job is to like have a lot of fun with the brand, create bold, exciting flavors, which is like what we're doing. I mean, our flavors are coming from a place at the restaurants, right? Like, Miss Mango comes from a mango salsa on a mahi taco. The pineapple barbecue comes from the pineapple salsa on a carnitas taco. So they're coming, the spices are coming from a mole, right? So the flavors are coming from an origin. We're not throwing darts at the wall saying like, let's try this, let's try that, right? Like, we're not using chemicals. We're not putting things in a centrifuge and spinning them and taking this oil and putting it together, which is how a lot of products are created. That's synthetic products, right? Like, people are always amazed when they eat our Diablo chips. They're like, how spicy is it? I'm like, try it, because the spice is like eating chilies. It's not a synthetic heat. A synthetic heat, when you put it in your mouth, you're like, your tongue lights on fire. That's synthetic heat. Using real chilies, it's a gradual progression, because the capsaicinoids in your mouth are hitting your taste buds, right? The capsaicin is from the heat from the chilies is mixing with your mouth and your taste buds, and the flavor is developing, it's building to like a crescendo. There's a little sweetness, like, oh, now there's a sweetness to it. But that's the that's the geeky side of it that people don't realize is going into the chip, but that's secretly what's making them fall in love with them.
Yeah, Joe, I could listen to you wax poetic about chip flavors for
So
I don't know how many episodes. No, I'm serious. And it brings me back to the first bag I had of El Nacho. And I vividly remember being in my backyard. And I, on a regular basis, almost every day of the week, I get a thing of cottage cheese and chips. And I just brush cottage cheese with chips. And I remember on this particular instance, I was trying the Miss Mango for the first time. And the hook for me was actually not the mango, it was the hot honey. I was like, that sounds intriguing. I really want to try that chip. And I remember finishing the cottage cheese and I just could not put the bag down. I crushed the entire bag. And I remember thinking to myself afterwards, like, when was the last time I opened a whole bag of chips and ate the entire thing in one, I can't say sitting because I was kind of standing and walking around my backyard. But at one time, and I vividly remember sending a picture to Justin Mayers, the founder of Kindle Fire, and because he loves tortillas, he was like, dude, you've got to try these. These are insane. And these chips do have that kind of effect. And hearing you talk about the level of intentionality and the flavor profiles and the way you cook and prepare the chips, like, now I understand why I couldn't put the bag down. And
it's
it really
amazing.
comes through.
Yeah. And we're listening too, like, to feedback. Like, we change, our flavors are developing as we get consumer feedback too. Like, there's no like set it and forget it here. It's like, we've adjusted the spice on Diablo. We went from like really spicy when we started. We toned it down. We got feedback like, oh, it's spicy enough. Like, let's turn it back up. Like, Miss Mango didn't have a lot of spice. Now she has more spice. So we had she wanted to be a little hotter. So we made her a little hotter. The smoky and like on the pina, like, he was too smoky. So we toned him down. And then it's very much an evolution. And so hearing your feedback is awesome. I mean, I really appreciate that. That's exactly the feedback that we want, exactly like the reaction that we want. We want you to crave the El Nacho chips and crush a bag and share it with your friends. I couldn't ask for anything more.
Yeah, it's very evident that this is chef formulated and curated. And I also want to acknowledge the humility to not make that the focal point of the brand. I think it'd be really easy to do that. But it would be a very artisanal strategy versus hey, we actually want to grow this into a regional national brand. So those are just two observations as we chatted through all that. Joe, I do want to spend just a little bit more time maybe on the Regen Ag piece and hear you speak to more about the operations of integrating that supply. You mentioned kind of a pain in the ass to figure out certifications and deal with the farmers. Give us a little bit more on what that process has been like. And as you think about growth, continuing to have identity preserved, regenerative certified supply, how does that affect the way that you're going to plan and do things?
So it's important to have, on the supply side, a great partner in the farming network. Because you got to have those lines of communication open for demand, right? As we increase demand, we need more corn. We don't want to run out of corn.
Right.
So there's a lot of faith. There's a lot of trust right now in, us executing on our side. I have a lot of responsibilities, right? That Toby and I are responsible for, not only all the employees here at the factory, but we're responsible for the farmers, right? If our product sucks, people don't buy it. Now, what happens to the corn that they're growing, right? So you need the consumer buy in there too. It's challenging, right? It's really challenging. We were thought about going ROC at one point. We chose not to go ROC just because of the organic on the avocado oil for us was it didn't make sense for us financially.
It's hard to find at the right price.
It's hard to find, and it was really not necessary. In my eyes, it's not necessary. I think that the regenerative farming in and of itself is superlative to any other farming happening right now, right? It really is as true to the roots as you can possibly get. And the farmers, I think, appreciate that. It's not a huge lift for them, but it is challenging. You got to remember, these guys are, they're working hard to grow corn, and the certification process for some of them can be overwhelming. Some farmers are trying to get certified with multiple different agencies, and some are just listen, man, I'm good here with this company, but I can't do this much paperwork over here. Like it's at some point it becomes too cumbersome for the farmer. And so like really developing the relationship is important. And then, like I said, forecasting, like our only one that's not regen right now is the blue corn chip that we sell. But that crop is planted for us, and we'll have that harvested in November. So we'll have that supply come in. We'll switch over to regen on the blue corn side as well. But it's important for the messaging, you know, that you guys are doing, that some of the retailers are doing, trying to build the innovation sets and focusing on regen. I think there's more marketing dollars, unfortunately, with like some of these regen certifications than there are with others. I think they're unnecessarily skewing opinion to one side or the other, whether it's like, you know, ROA versus AGW versus regen versus, you know, I think the tribes all got to come together here and say, like, if we want to grow this as a group, we got to work together. Like this can't be an us versus you. Like there's not going to be the non-GMO butterfly seal project for regen, right? It's too big. It's just way too big for that. I think it's a message that, you know, I don't know how to get that. I don't know how to get that across, I guess. I don't know how you can get these companies to understand that, because it came down to really like our launch in the Whole Foods. Like, so we were trying to get our SKUs approved by Whole Foods, and at the time, AGW was not an approved vendor for regen, right? They were in there for their, they were in there for humane practices, right, for animals and welfare. But the only ones that were available was really like ROA, was regen, and there's one other I can't remember. And so we're like,
Land of Market and Identified.
Yeah, so we were working really closely with AGW. It was like, listen, are you guys going to get approved? Like, we're trying to get approved. Like, are you going to get approved? Like, so I got to print bags. Like, I got to buy corn. Like, this guy's going to plant corn. Like, it was a real struggle. I mean, we got lucky. I think we got lucky with finding a farmer that like had crop available. And AGW was able to help us through that process. I mean, we were close. And there was a point where I sent regen out to try to certify farm, but it was too late because that farm had already harvested the crop, and the crop has to be in the ground before they can get certified. So some of these, like, you know, entry points for the farmers can be a little cumbersome, and I don't think the messaging is clear to them yet, right? There's a lot of farmers that really don't know much about the business side of regen, right? These can be like 4th, 5th, 6th generation farmers that have been doing the same thing over and over again. I mean, hey, listen, like, what are we, like, less than 10% of the corn that's grown in this country, right? We consume as humans, right? The rest of it goes to commodity. So we need the consumer to really embrace it, right, with messaging and making this like a better for the earth mission, right? Like, big business did it with organics, and we need big business to like kind of get on board with the regen. They're starting to, right? I mean, they're doing it for profit, for dollars, and they're not doing it to save the earth, right? They're doing it because they see market share, and they may be losing it with organic, but I think it's part of the process, right? You're not going to do this by ourselves, and we need the economies of scale that maybe some of the bigger players can bring to it, right? Like, if a big player can get a much larger crop planted for regen, then it maybe opens up the supply for smaller brands like ourselves to be able to have access to that regen stuff. But you know, educating the consumer and educating the buyers is really important. I think the certification process needs to be streamlined. You know, it's still a bit cumbersome, right, to get certified and go through the certification process. I think there's a lot of messaging that needs to be done for, you know, to the consumers, is like, you know, tapping into like that this is actually better for you. It's not only better for the earth, it's better for you, right? You're getting more nutrient dense food, which is more important in today's society, right? Everybody's so concerned with like back of pack and like, how many grams of protein am I getting? It's like, listen, you're not going to build muscle by eating like, you know, protein waffles. Like, it's not going to happen. But like, there's like, you know, there's like a numbing effect of like, just throwing protein in everything. I'm like, let's throw protein in the tortilla chips, and like, we can be protein tortilla chips too. It's like, I'm not sure can have big muscles. It's like, no, it's like, you gotta like at some point step back and say like, eat foods that are clean, eat foods that are good for you, eat things in moderation, and have a diverse diet. And I think that that's really the ultimate message that the consumer needs. Like, I think a lot of people are looking for the Band-Aid fix, right? If I buy this shake or if I buy this drink, like I'm going to like shed 20 pounds and I can skip 4 meals today because I had, protein enhanced whatever for dinner. It's our country is very immature when it comes to nutrition. Like we don't get it, right? Like we've drank the Kool-Aid, pun intended, of like all this sugary stuff, and now we're drinking the Kool-Aid on like everything being fixed by like more protein, more fiber, more of this. But there's a lot of raw products out there. Just eat bread from your local bakery, get a sourdough starter, like make bread at home, like start there, right? Like you can use that starter for a million different things. It's going to be better for you than that like loaf of bread you're buying from the store. Eat more whole foods and vegetables, like fruits and vegetables, like start there. Right. You want anti-inflammatories, like eat some cherries, eat some grapes, have some melon, have some water, like eat some apples, right? Eat an orange, like eat more put more of this food in your diet. Like, yes, I understand there's like economics involved and like the entire population can't eat this. And, that it's very unfortunate that government subsidizes so much of our crops and their corn and like, pushes us into corn syrups and corn sugars and like fuel. And unfortunately that becomes like, what some people can afford to eat in this country, right? Like I was down the street from one of my restaurants and I was at a gas station and I went in to pay for the gas, and there's a subsidized housing behind the gas station. And this kid was in there and he was buying, a bag of chips, just bag of Doritos. He was buying, a soda. And he was buying like one of those like hot dogs out of the little rolling thing.
Eternally rolling hot dogs.
Yeah. I mean, his whole purchase was like probably under $4. And it was just really sad to me that like, that's the type of food that's available to a certain income. And we're doing that to ourselves in this country, right? Like the more brands that embrace, better for you goods, better for you foods, the more available it will be. Like we do have to at some point hold ourselves accountable for what we're producing in this country, and consumers that have dollars have to make that decision. They have to stop, spending their dollars on brands that aren't doing the right thing. But a lot of times it's easy, right? Because you get that big bulk pack, you can get a 24 pack and you're getting this like unbelievable deal for $9.99. You're getting like 40 servings. Like I get it, man. I got 4 kids. Like it's expensive to feed all the mouths, but you can do a lot with the grocery store with a small budget. And I know I've gotten off subject here a little bit because it's something that is like, it's near and dear to my heart, right? Because it does go back to like the farming practices, right? It's like, where is the farming come from? What part of the farming is subsidized? Like how big is like organic agriculture gotten? And for no reason, it's priced organic ag like higher than it needs to be. It doesn't need to be that expensive. It's price gouging. It's like it's margin, like it's greed. And I think regen is a way for a much more natural farming to take place that is really like going back to like, the 1800s and 1900s of like the way the crops should be grown, like having a biodiverse farm, right? Like having chickens and cows and corn and like cover crops on that farm to like support that farm and like whatever you can produce to sell, right? Like that's an important part of like where this country needs to move. Other countries are able to do this, right? Like we're not asking anything big here. Like we have the real estate to do it. We've got the resources to do it. We just need big business to put the dollars behind it and get the consumer to demand it. Because they do it in other countries. And man, when you like try to rock the boat over there, the farmers get together and they have a riot and they like block trucks and they like, smash bottles and they go berserk, right? When you try to rock the boat and you're like, what are you doing? I think we just need to be more passionate about it. I think it's messaging. Like it'd be great to have like one big overarching, like, big daddy to show up and say like, hey guys, come on, everybody's got to play nice in the playground or we're never gonna get this thing going. We'll see what happens, but I'm hoping for the best. You see more and more brands coming on board. Yeah. You guys doing that, right? Yeah. Try to bring everybody together, right? Like it's important, right? We got to play together.
Trying.
It's a big sandbox. It's a big sandbox. Right,
the brands and the retailers have to lead, and you need some sort of middle person. So hopefully the coalition can be that. I mean, we're actually trying to work on that. We're not hiding that, but you know, there has to be critical mass of brands and retailers that agree, hey, we're gonna roll this kind of framework. We have someone that can help execute it, and then they can work with the certifiers to kind of create some more harmony. So we'll see.
Yeah, no, it's really important. It'll happen. You know, it's the willingness for people to like accept regenerative agriculture as what's important. Like, this is important. It's important for your kids. It's important for the future. It's just important. You know,
on that note, Joe, I'd love to hear your version of what's actually happening on the farm. So like, if you could paint the picture for us for like a traditional conventional corn farm and what's happening on an AGW certified regenerative farm, and how are those things different?
Well, the Dust Bowl, right? Like, everybody goes in and you know, becomes commodity. And those farmers are you know, a lot of that corn is subsidized, right? Because they're growing it and it's subsidized by the government. And so, you know, they're guaranteed X amount of dollars for X amount of land that's planted. That in and itself is a problem. And when you're looking at like mass produced corn, like we're just conventional corn, you're talking about, you know, engineered corn, right? So it's coming from like Monsanto or Conagra, and that corn is, you know, the fertilizers inside that corn kernel and the pesticides inside that corn kernel. And those farmers are driven by yield, right? Like, how much yield can I possibly get? It's not quality, it's quantity. And then in some cases, they're guaranteed a minimum. So even if their corn doesn't come in, they're stripping that earth of all the nutrients. They're tilling that soil. They're releasing all the nutrients, all the carbon dioxide. They're releasing all that nitrogen into the air, and they're trying to replace it with like engineered corn that has that stuff packed inside, which is horrible for us to eat. You know, conversely, when you go to a farm that is using, you know, regenerative farming, and they have the appropriate amount of corn that can grow on the appropriate amount of soil, with the appropriate amount of nutrients. And hey, guess what? They're able to get more use out of that land because they don't have to let it go dormant, because they can plant their cover crops and they're not tilling their soil. They're not irrigating as much as they would have to with the other. They don't have their giant sprayers, like, you know, going all over, like, you know, just wasting water where like 50% of that's evaporating into the air before it even hits the crop. They're able to go, like, you know, right to the roots. That is just such a healthy alternative. You've got cover crops that are bringing in pollinators, right? So now pollinators are coming in, and, you know, it's not happening maybe directly on the farm, but hey, those trees that were growing across the street, that wild grass that was across the street that was all dry, is now full of wildflowers, and it's full of, you know, trees and saplings and stuff that are coming back to life. So that's part of also the regeneration, right? It's not just the soil that's on that farm, it's the regeneration of the surrounding community. When you have a crop that's growing and then you have a cover crop, whether it's, I don't know, clover or whatever it may be, that's bringing in pollinators. Anytime you're encouraging pollinators to come into your space, you're encouraging, you know, flowers and flora all over your community. And just imagine a world, right? It's like that bee movie, right? Where all the pollen like disappears, and you know, and then all of a sudden the carpet rolls out and everything's breeding it because the bees came back. It's like, we're saving the bees too, right? Like there's so many different things that are happening with responsible farming. These farmers are providing like our nutrients for our life. Like, I think we have to give a lot of respect and a lot of props to the farmers. And listen, I know enough to be dangerous. I am not an expert in this field at all, right? Like, I'm learning too, but my drive is coming from like putting 1 and 1 together as 2, and realizing that, like, hey, if I'm willing to spend a little bit more on this corn, then I'm helping a farmer be more responsible. Then ultimately, like, I'm helping the world become a better place. And it's like incremental, like it's so incremental. If more people would just adapt that philosophy and be on the incremental change, not living like at the front of their nose, seeing beyond it, I think you'd see like just a massive explosion in this type of like farming. And it's also, you know, for raising cattle, raising livestock and chickens, and it runs. Sorry, I get tongue tied when I get so fired up about something, because I'm just like, why don't people get this? Why don't people don't understand it? It's like, come on, it's so easy.
Yeah. And what I love about the word incremental that you use, what brands like El Nacho do is they allow for incrementality with less barrier, right? You're creating a product that is so approachable for people who might want it to trade up and still have a fun, delicious, unique, interesting something to consume that they want to share with friends. Whereas I'm thinking about, and this is a terrible example because it's not necessarily good for the planet, but like grape nuts, right? As a kid, if grape nuts were like this is the right thing to do, it's like nobody wants to eat grape nuts as a cereal, So it's like you've managed to put everything you just described into a really compelling product, and in a package that's appealing. And that's what we need is more brands doing what you all are doing. And it's just really cool to see.
I appreciate that. Barrier to entry is, low price point for like quality. It's like so important. You got to get trial. You get people to be like, oh, I can have something that's good for me and tastes awesome, and it's not killing my bank, right? It's like not busting the bank. Like you can, for us to be on shelf at $5.99 for like regen corn, avocado oil, like white corn nixtamalized in the house, like it's insane. The value proposition. So just getting the consumer, like, try it, like, become a believer, and then demand that your other brands do the same.
On that point, sorry, AC, you go ahead.
Yeah, I want to ask about that and one other question. So kind of a two-pronged one, Joe. Like you mentioned everything from farm stands to potentially trying to get in Whole Foods nationally. Like how are you thinking about growth strategy? Is the brand really focused on grocery, or is there alt channels that you think are going to be really important to this? I'm assuming you're really focused on natural since you went to Expo West this year and like you applied for Nexties and all that. And then from a specific, like how are you thinking about driving trial and what do you think is important for that?
So for us, we are focused on a lot of different channels. It's hard to say like focused on a lot of different things. Yeah. But you can be very surgical about how you do this, right? Like there are certain natural channels that we want to be in. Like we're launching in Sprouts or Fresh Thyme. We're launching in Whole Foods here on the East Coast in August. Nice. And that's really great brand presence for us. That's really like a feather in our cap. We're really proud of it. We're very grateful to the buyers that are giving us the opportunity. But we believe to really be mainstream with regen, you have to go beyond natural, the natural channel. Like, we're talking to, 7-Eleven, you talk to Meijer, you talk to Albertsons, you talk to like these people that are offering snacks, right? We're in food service, right? We're with US Foods. So, offering, a snack at your sub shop that is regen avocado tortilla chip, like it doesn't exist. Like it's really cool. And as these boutique eateries pop up, like those boutique sandwich shops, boutique coffee shops, like we're now offering a product that's like very different. It's a snackable product that is very high on the quality scale with regen or whatever, where they might have gravitated towards like a potato chip. Now they're gravitating towards a tortilla chip. So that's an important avenue for us, the all channel, convenience stores, gas stations, with our snack bags, conventional, of course, and then we'll probably like start dabbling like club sales, probably 2026. But that'll be like a really targeted thing for us. But you got to drive trial through sampling and through, have a good merchandising partner and, offering those coupons and demos and like being humble about it. Like you have a great product and we're not chasing the margin right now for us. Like it's healthy, but we got to focus on the consumer, right? Like any restaurant, when you open a new restaurant, your first couple of years is about building loyalty and building consumer confidence and building yourself up for like trust and integrity. And that's what we're in the process of doing right now.
Nice. I cut you off on the last one, bro.
I was going to ask a similar question, like, what are you doing to drive trial? And it sounds like, demo merchandising, passive demos, I'm really interested in, is there a smaller package for some of the alt channel that you were talking about?
So we have a 2.7 ounce bag that we sell.
Okay.
We launched as well. Yeah. That's been super popular. So 7-Eleven's going to put us in their stores. They're going to start in the Texas area. We're talking to groups for like stadiums, cruise ships, event venues, hotel chains, send samples to Disney.
There we go.
Let's see what happens. Get Mickey on the Lucha, Mickey mask. But I think it's just like looking at the landscape very differently. Retail is very challenging to be successful in. There's a lot of players in the field. Retailer margins they always want to be margin whole. Those margins are very big. And there are some other alt channels that can be more lucrative. And I think we're kind of exploring all of that right now.
Nice.
And owning the manufacturing, making everything, being nimble with flavors and bag size and pack size and order size gives you the ability to tap into some of these alt channels in a quick manner.
Yeah. It sounds like you have plenty going on. There's a lot to do, no doubt. You've mentioned this a couple of times, and we always have to ask, and you do not have to answer this, so I apologize if I'm being nosy, but like, any chance you could give us like a sneak peek or a hint at what the new flavor might be?
Yeah, we're working on a vegan Cool Ranch.
Ooh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Vegan Cool Ranch. And there's one added twist to it too, but
Yeah.
I'll go with vegan Cool Ranch.
Okay.
I'm looking forward to seeing the luchador that's on the cover of that one.
Yeah. The Ranchero.
Ranchero.
I love
Like
that.
it as a dark blue, on the yellow, I'm assuming.
I'll send you the preview.
Okay.
There you
Nice.
Password protected link.
Yeah.
Yeah, this message will self-destruct.
This has been great, man. Thank you. Super informative, super fun. Last question that we ask everybody, which I'm sure you'll have an interesting take on, is how do we get Regen brands to have 50% market share by 2050? What do we need to do? Other than have El Nacho join the Regen Brands Coalition, which sounds like that's going to for sure happen. But other than that, Joe, what do we need to do?
To get everybody on board, we got to get the consumer messaging out there. The consumer is the answer.
Yeah.
We got to get the consumer trial on board and build up the hype over Regen, like why it's so important. I mean, hey, like a couple celebrities wouldn't help, and like doesn't take much. Just think there's a little fire started, there's a little kindling. It needs a little bit more kindling, but I think that if you light that fire, it's going to be a rager. And I think that
what do you think is the major potential unlock to get that smoldering, kindling starter fire to like the full blown like this is a cultural event, people understand this. I mean, could you potentially distill it down to like this is the one thing that needs to happen, or is that an oversimplification?
I think it's a bit of an oversimplification because it's the consumer has to demand it. If the consumer demands it, game over, right? Maybe that is simplified. It's how you get the consumer to demand it. But once the consumer is demanding Regen, it's game over for everybody. We can modify our food supply chain. We can do it. We're doing it now, right? Like we're banning stuff now. As soon as it's demanded and it's made like, this is what has to happen. Like all the big companies got to fall in line. Listen, they've been able to do it in other countries, sell the same product, similar product in other countries for like all this time, but they're feeding us crap. So if the consumer demands it, it'll change.
I think you're right. And I think, this is obviously my personal bias and experience, but the interesting thing to me about a regenerative consumer is it's not necessarily like a fad diet. It's not like keto or paleo or Whole30. I think there's a longevity-ness to the movement that once you're in on regenerative, you're not really going to go out. It's never not going to be important to you.
No. When you used to go into Whole Foods, you used to see the farmers in the signs, right? Like you used to be able to connect with like, this came from this orchard, this asparagus came from here, right? We're trying to build that into our future story. We're trying to like identify the farmer. Like a lot of people want to hide their sources, right? You want to hide, where's Joe getting his corn from that he can grow, blah, blah, blah. It's like, cool, it's coming from this guy over here. Here's our farm, here's our source. This is his story. We're going to start to tell those stories as well on our website. And we want to get those farmers involved with like our social media. And I think when the consumers start to connect the farmer to the product, then it becomes real because they see the guy with the tractor holding the corn saying like, this is great corn and peeling it, and you got like little farm kids and like, everybody's like, it's like on the pumpkin patch. Like we all love going to the pumpkin patch, right? Because we think that we're so close to like nature and we can go pick our pumpkin and pick our apples and we climb the tree and like, we're like, it's the best apple crisp you ever made. We can do that with corn. You can do it with rice. You can do it with flat red wheat. You can do it with all the things. So I think building the brand story and getting the farmers, a lot of these guys don't want to do it, right? Like they want to drive their tractor, like leave me alone. But I think the more farmers we get on board, like to be part of be spokespeople for this and partner with the brands and don't hide it behind a veiled curtain of like, what is regen? Because I think consumers are confused. They don't know what regen is. Why is it better or not better than anything else? Getting the farmers to like talk about like their horror stories, like why is this corn actually better for you? What was my field like before I was this, and what is my field like now?
Yeah.
Right. My 2 cents.
Yeah. I love it. I look forward to celebrating when we turn it into a rager, as you said, with you, brother.
Yeah.
So I look forward to that day.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Really appreciate everything you shared. Obviously, coming into this episode, I was a fan of the brand. Sometimes you meet your heroes and they let you down. This was the exact opposite. I'm even more so a fan of your brand than I was when we started the episode. So appreciate everything you're doing.
Yes, likewise. I mean, you guys spreading the message is so important for everybody.
Yeah. And if y'all want to find out more about Joe, our listeners, you can go to elnachochip.com. We'll obviously have some other fun links in the show notes as well. But Joe, thanks for joining us, man. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate your time. Thanks for having me on.
For transcripts, show notes, and more information on this episode, check out our website, regen-brands.com. That is regen-brands.com. You can also check out our YouTube channel, Regen Brands, for all of our episodes with both video and audio. The best way to support our work is to give us a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast platform and subscribe to future episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. You can also subscribe to our newsletter, the Regen Brands Weekly, and follow our Regen Brands LinkedIn page to stay in the know on all the latest news, insights, and perspectives from the world of regenerative CPG. Thanks so much for tuning into the Regen Brands podcast. We hope you learned something new in this episode and it empowers you to use your voice, your time, your talent, and your dollars to help us build a better and more regenerative food system. Love you guys.